There are many ways people listen to Vision, including through a PC at work.
When you fire up your computer at work, go to vision.org.au/listen and click the Vision or V180 Listen Live buttons. You can also catch the latest Vision National News Bulletin and enjoy a growing range of on-demand podcasts from the same page, all while you work.
However, and wherever you listen to Vision, you can be sure that the announcers, programs and music will help you look to God daily. A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
But becoming a father for the first time causes many adjustments and added pressures to our lives in a world that is already complex and full of challenges. And sometimes our childhood experiences and formal education rarely prepare us to face the pressure and challenge of becoming parents. And this is true for both men and women. But one man who experienced this firsthand decided to create a movement to help other new fathers navigate their way through the new role and responsibilities that fatherhood brings. Dadsgroup was birthed in 2014 by a young father and his wife because they saw a need for support and community for new dads, and they decided to help fill this need. The CEO and founder of Dadsgroup joins me now. Thomas Docking, welcome.
Good morning, Andrew. How are you?
It's good. I'm well, mate. Thank you for joining us. And it's so good to be talking to you about Dadsgroup today. I think it's great every now and then. We just had International Women's Day last week. I think it's great to also celebrate the dads and the fathers in our community too.
Fantastic, mate. So do I. And I think the interesting thing about supporting dads in the perinatal period or that early stage, those early years, is actually that it's really supporting mums and babies as well. And that's the whole goal of supporting fathers in that early years, is that we support those new families in those really complex, low sleep, high risk periods of life.
Yeah, and you make a really good point there that we're in a very polarised society today where everyone's getting classified and labelled and pronounced. You know, when we're talking about a family, you can't isolate the dads and the mums and the kids and look at them purely as individuals, can you? It's a unit, it's a group that all add their strengths and their challenges, but together they work together, and the dads are one very important part of that unit, aren't they?
Oh, it's such a good point that you raise, and it's not one that people seem to think of very often, but it's exactly right. It's about holistic support when you're looking at new families. If you're trying to support a baby, you need to look at the environment the baby's in. If you're trying to support the mum, you need to look at the environment the mum's in, and dads are no different. Unfortunately, in our society, the health system has unintentionally overlooked fathers, and that's a system problem that we're trying to change over the next 20 years. But at a grassroots level, the experience for mothers and fathers is very different. And connecting in with the hospitals and communities, it's a key part of changing how the system works, is raising the fact that there is actually a caregiver there, often known as a dad or a father figure, who can really help the situation if we equip them better. And that's what Dadsgroup's doing across Australia, is equipping fathers to be able to be more aware of their own needs in that time, but also more aware of their partner's needs and their infant's needs, so they can be what we kind of are moving towards calling them perinatal first responders, you know, getting in there with the resources and the tools and equipment to be able to know how to help mum, bubs and themselves in that really, really complex transition of identity from a dude to a dad.
Maybe the dads can stay being dudes as well. But I love your passion for families, Thomas. As I said, there's nothing polarising about your message. There's nothing polarising about your organisation. You're not trying to promote men over women or women over men for that matter, but you're trying to promote family. And Thomas, I'd like you to tell our listeners your story. Why did you start Dadsgroup?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. My story is obviously a personal connection with the concept of fatherhood, but also, you know, my mother, before she passed away, she did a huge amount of work in the maternal space, working in isolated communities such as Arakan in far north Queensland, Arnhem Land, where I grew up in an Aboriginal community, then over in Africa and Uganda, and seeing her passion into that space and was always inspiring. She's a really motivated, powerful community changer. And I guess when I had my own lived experience as a father, I just realised there was no support for dads, or the system does not even engage fathers in a semi-reasonable way. And then speaking to other fathers, there was just this underlying quiet sentiment that, the hospital experience for me was really isolating, or that, I felt like a trailer on the experience. And when you go through this, you're like, oh, this needs to change. But as the years progress, there's less and less need to make a change, because you get on with your life. But what we found when we started to do some research on the industry is that, everyone has the same experiences, but then they get over it and move on, whereas the system actually needs to acknowledge new fathers. And also, when we really unpacked it, we looked at family violence and suicide and isolation and mental ill health and poor childhood development outcomes. And all these can be addressed through preventative elements where we're engaging fathers. Not that these things are all going to be solved by that, but by not engaging fathers, we're leaving the door wide open to unnecessary, poor, tragic family outcomes.
Yeah, and you do touch on a wider point there, that we have a real issue with mental health amongst men in Australia today. It's almost like they're the forgotten species now, because obviously the last 20 years or so, we've really worked hard in our society to empower women and correct any, previous historical wrongs where maybe there was a disparity in the level of respect and opportunity. But going back to your personal story, tell me, how old were you when you became a father for the first time, and what sort of emotions were you experiencing, and what was going on?
Oh, jeepers, I don't know exactly how old I was. It was a bit of a blur. I think I was 30 or thereabouts.
Yeah, so you weren't like an 18-year-old kid that was just blindsided by a pregnant partner and wife. So you're an adult. You obviously had progressed in a professional career. But what do you remember about that time? Yeah,
I think interestingly, despite the age that I was, blindsided was the feeling, and that's certainly, I've realised, is common for lots of fathers, whether you're 14, which is the youngest father that I've connected with in our program, all the way through to 63. All those dads have this, or most of those dads have a feeling of, I'm not ready, or I'm blindsided by this identity transition. So it was really, it really shook me up. And, we're always seeing people who are like myself smiling on the outside but freaking out on the inside. And those things that we're freaking out about are often things that we don't share with our partner or with our colleagues at work. So Dadsgroup is a space to be able to normalise those experiences. And as my dad always said, a problem shared is a problem halved. So you just share some of your thoughts or your challenges or whatever, and often you see that other guys resonate with that, and they go, yeah, that's actually what I'm going through at the moment. And all of a sudden there's a sense of camaraderie, a sense of shared challenge. And in that, it's amazing how much you can get through of a challenge when you're part of the challenge with a team, or a part of the challenge with other people around you. And that's for all kind of peer support, approaches to social and emotional and mental challenges. So it's no different. It's just that this is applying that peer group to an unspoken, often hidden challenge behind men's smiles in those perinatal or early years. Is that there's a bit more going on that's really challenging, and they haven't got a safe place to talk about those things in a way that doesn't negatively impact, maybe their partner or put pressure on their partner because they're struggling as well. And I think for me, growing up in an Aboriginal community in Arnhem Land was amazing, because we saw the way in which the Indigenous communities up there embrace being together as men and women, both in a separate but healthy way. And I just thought that's such a beautiful way that we could bring to our culture is healthy places that were intergenerational connection and just sharing stories. Like, it's friendship and sharing stories at the end of the day is what the magic of Dadsgroup, where you see grandfathers and dads with their little daughters or with their little sons, and they're reflecting on their experience as grandfathers, but also empowering those new generation of fathers. And then the third generation, this little infant, is growing up in a space where there's healthy male role models and there's healthy connection between community members, and those children of these dads groups will grow up to be really well equipped in that space for healthy male role models and healthy community connections. Yeah. And it's not just about just dads as well. In the groups, we run a really fun event called Man with a Pram, which we've done all across Australia, and that's where mums and grandmas and granddads all get involved, and nurses and midwives and health practitioners and child health nurses. And it's a really, we talk about a village to raise the child, but, where is that village is the experience for most new parents. It's like, it doesn't just happen.
Yeah, so absolutely. I'm just, you've touched on so many things there, Thomas, and I just want to just zero in on something. Like you said, where is this village? And going back to your story, so you're freaking out a little bit because your partner's had a baby and you've got a little baby now. You don't want to scare your partner by saying, hey, I'm freaking out. Where did you look and try and find help that you kind of felt like you needed? And what was your journey? Did you start Googling, or did you reach out to organisations or churches? What was the first steps of your journey?
Like the first, and I guess that's what led to Dadsgroup was I first reached out to a couple of guys who just had a baby actually, and they were at the local church that I was going to, and I just went and hung out with them. I think down at the local pool with their kids before Evelyn came along. So Kate and I had Evelyn. Now we have Evelyn, Annabelle, and Joseph. But jumping back into that situation, that was down in Ringwood in Melbourne. All of a sudden, when I was with these two guys, Joel and Carvin, I just felt this sense of, I feel like I could ask them anything and they'll get it. And I just saw them with their kids interacting, and I'm like, don't know how to do that, but I think now that I've seen them do that, I can learn that, and I can be exposed to that fathering, which I just, I don't know who teaches you how to father. You don't, even if you've had a great father like I have, you still don't feel confident. So for me, that experience of connecting with other dads with their infants was like incredible. It really, really changed my outlook. It empowered me, and it all happened behind the scenes. So no one would have known what was going on, but I just thought every new and expecting father in Australia needs to have access to this experience.
I love that. So straight up, you've just found some guys on a similar journey to you, and you've learnt from them just through their example, through their conversations, and through your friendship. So Dadsgroup started organically, didn't it? It started with you just finding a group of dads and gleaning information and help and support, and that really was the nucleus for this whole organisation you've started.
Exactly, yeah. It was my lived experience. It just started there, and it was like it was obvious. Everyone needs access to this type of experience. And now, almost 10 years later, the Victorian government have validated dads groups as a needed part of society, and they've started to support councils to fund dads groups. And now we're working with councils all over Australia to actually implement the programs that we've trialled and tested across Australia. And it's really exciting because getting dads together with their infants is about, one of the most positive experiences for that new family, and it empowers mums. The feedback from mums is incredible. They often come to the first event and they're, what is this dads group all about? And they realise, these dads they're just being dads, and they're, bottle feeding babies, and I might just go for a walk or hang out with a friend or grab a coffee for an hour. And often it's the first time mums have had a break since the babies come along. So it really is, it's a special environment, and it's something that I just see these fathers, whether they're CEOs or culturally and linguistically diverse or from different backgrounds or have no family around to support them, they're all there being the best version of themselves. And it's like this invitation to a space where, despite who I think I am, despite my past grievances or challenges, at Dadsgroup I can be the best dad or the best version of myself, and that's such a huge opportunity.
Oh, it's massive. And so you're creating, whether we want to call it community or a bunch of mates or just a bunch of friends or the boys, Whatever it is, I think humans deep down inside are tribal beings. We need a tribe. We need a group. Especially men, we need to feel like we belong to something somewhere. And I just love this story. You've created this group called Dadsgroup, which is just helping men find community, find mates, find dudes on a similar journey. And Thomas, just before we come back to you, I just want to read out something from your website, which really captures what it's like for a new dad. This is the average new dad. He's trying to figure out his role. He wonders if his parenting skills are good enough. He's so tired, he's struggling to perform at work. He finds there's no time to catch up with friends anymore. He's feeling like a failure at everything, but desperately trying to be strong for everyone else. I think that really sums it up, Thomas. And we've got callers. The talkback lines are lighting up this morning. So we're going to go straight to some callers today. And we have got Adam in Wauchope in New South Wales. Adam, thanks for joining 2020.
Oh, thank you, Andrew. No, just my story. I've got a little 3-year-old here. So when she was born, it was right in the middle of a certain pandemic, where everything was shut down. You're stuck in a house by yourself, and support few and far between. And just before I go, is it Dadsgroup on Instagram? Is that the one I've just found? Is it actually listed on Instagram as Dadsgroup?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, fantastic, because I've just logged on there. That's fantastic. What I found, there was no support that I could actually find at that point in time. Churches were sort of shut down and weren't doing play groups and all those sorts of things, which we've all got back now and can enjoy. But my story was I had, with my first wife, we had 2 miscarriages, and I was absolutely scared of having a child, even though I was 45 once Lily just arrived a few years ago, because we sort of had those full starts earlier on. But one thing I can say is when that baby was born, the one I've had now, I was terrified until the moment she came out, and when I first held her, everything went. It was the most amazing thing. That I've had serious illness for 20 years, and I didn't think I'd ever have a child. And when this beautiful, strong baby that I asked for, that's all I asked for, a strong, healthy baby, came out, kicking, strong arms, strong legs. I felt she was unbreakable immediately as she came out. And it was just awesome, just having all those fears that you have as a father in waiting were gone.
Yeah.
Excellent. So what you're saying, Adam, is if you've got a pregnant partner or wife right now and you're freaking out about that little one that's going to come out, just hang on, because the joy, like the Bible says, the joy of that newborn baby is going to outweigh all of the anxiety and the stress and the fear that you were facing beforehand.
And it is normal, and it's completely normal to feel that way. Nobody ever confirmed. It is completely normal to be terrified, but it was also completely normal. It doesn't happen with everyone, but as soon as she came out, it was gone. I mean, there's different fears you have once the baby comes out in the world. As a father and leading a family, you've got totally different fears that can come up you've got to deal with. But that fear of actually just being a father, for that, in the instant and all the things that you're responsible for, when they come out healthy like you asked for and everything else, it all goes away. It's
awesome. Thomas, do you want to quickly give Adam a comment before we move on to the next call? We've got a lot of callers coming through today.
I think, Adam, it's just so special to hear you say that, and it's sharing those moments which really deeply move, under, as I said before, the smiles that are on your faces, but the fears that are underneath. It's those moments that are healing for us as fathers, and as mothers as well, that are so special to share. And you can't share that with someone in a way that actually resonates with them unless they've actually had an experience like that. And that's why getting together with other fathers, whether it's, a friend or a family member or a brother or a dad, it's just so powerful because they're really beautiful moments in life that really inspire us to get through some of the challenges, that we know are also coming with having little ones.
Yeah, so excellent. And Adam, I want to thank you so much for calling in today from Wauchope in New South Wales. God bless. Sounds like you're an awesome dad too. Enjoy that ride, Adam, and thanks for the call.
Cheerio.
Okay, we're going to go to Josh in Hobart. Hobart, one of the most beautiful cities in Australia. I am biased because I went there last year for the first time and thought, man, Hobart is a beautiful place. But thanks for joining us today, Josh, from from Hobart? Or have we got Scott on the line from Hobart?
It's Scott, yeah.
Sorry, Scotty, I got your name wrong there. But Scott, what would you like to make a comment on today on being a dad?
Oh, look, mate, I just wanted to call in and say me and my partner, within the last few years, fell pregnant with twins, fraternal twins, and it brought up a lot of our own childhood traumas that we probably hadn't really dealt with properly ourselves. And it was really challenging time, especially for Mum, and going through the whole twin pregnancy and just things we didn't expect. And we actually ended up having to take a little bit of a break from each other just after the twins were born to try and find ourselves and find support. And I really struggled as much as she really struggled through it herself. And we sort of had to find our own support through external services and different friends and family that we could sort of lean upon. And we've recently been able to push through a lot of that stuff and come back together and come back together as a family and work through a lot of that stuff between us both now, which has felt really good. But we went through a really tough time, and I know there's a lot of other people out there having twins as well, and it just sort of throws a little bit of an extra curveball in the mix. So I just wanted to say that if anyone's out there feeling like we did at the time, that there are different sort of multiple birth places out there that you can get in touch with. And
well, Scott, can I ask you a question? What was the biggest thing? Because obviously that was a big deal you went through there. What was the biggest thing that helped you? One thing that really helped you on that journey?
One thing that really helped me with that journey would have to be reaching out to other people and seeing some of their stories with multiple births and realising maybe we weren't the only ones that have gone through something like this. And realising that we're not perfect and we need to keep pushing and trying as hard for our family as possible. So I think reaching out and seeing someone, again, like some of the other guys have said, being in somewhat of a similar position and just trying to resonate as much as you can with those guys and gals and trying to find a bit of solace in that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Thomas, have you got something you want to share with Scott before he goes today?
Yeah, firstly, Scott, just thank you for sharing that, that deep traumatic, experience that you're reflecting on your own childhood or your own experiences. And that's what, often children do, multiple births, and known to be, I think it's more than 10 times harder or some ridiculous amount harder than just single birth. So it's really going to compound those challenges. And also just, you touched on the fact that you guys need to work your own stuff out. And I think we all want a perfect life that's like a postcard, but realistically life's messy, and being able to own that mess and own our own parts of that mess and work through that, which does take time and is really painful and does need external support. What you've just highlighted is actual leadership in that space. So just really encourage you, because you're sharing your story. It allows others who might be going through a similar thing to not lose hope in the mess of it all. And in the challenges of it all, because we all just, we look at these Instagram lives that are just absolutely not true, and we're subconsciously comparing ourselves to something that doesn't exist, whereas going through that mess and working through it with a goal in mind is something that you've done, and you're showing leadership through that. So yeah, thanks for sharing your story, and I really hope that your family will benefit from that, and other families will benefit from that in years to come.
Thank you so much for your kind words, mate. They have really benefited us, coming back together as a family already, so I can see the results and where it will head in the future, which has given me lots and lots of hope, and I'm really proud of them.
Good on you, Scott.
Amazing.
We really appreciate you calling in today too. As I said, we love our Hobart listeners. We have a citywide signal across Hobart now. Vision is there in Hobart citywide. And we do have another caller from Hobart now, Josh. Josh, I'm sorry I mentioned your name before, but I actually got Scott on the line instead of you. But welcome to 2020 today.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Good, Josh. What have you got to share with us today?
I was just going to check the line first, actually. I've been sitting here listening and it's been in and out all the time. Am I coming through all right?
Yeah, loud and clear, brother. Loud and clear.
Oh, good. My experience is our little bloke was born at the end of 2020, so there was all the societal baggage that came with that at that time of life. But I'm self-employed, so there's that element to it already. I'm generally busy. I'm got a bit of a bag of cats for a brain. So I don't generally tend to do so well planning ahead. I just sort of bumble from one sort of opportunity or incident to the next, which has been interesting because I've got a very good wife who's very good at that. So as our little bloke grew, she was more sort of anticipating what was coming next, whereas I was just reacting. So that's been quite a thing to have that support there. But I became part of a group down here that was run by a bunch of dads of similar aged kids. And the difficulty that we've found across the board with all the dads, with all the guys that ran it and came to it, is that we're all in the same boat. We're all time poor. We've all got our own adult scheduling conflicts, but because of the ages of our kids and bedtimes, etc., it's hard to even catch up just as dads. That played a big part of it. But then a personal side of it for me also was I've got a road-going motorcycle that I quite like to ride, but between working five odd days a week and then coming to the weekend and my wife going, oh, maybe you should take the bike out, go for some time by yourself on Saturday. Once you've worked 5 days and you're doing bits of homework at night being self-employed, the last thing you want to do is to go out on the weekend and take time for yourself. There's an element of, I want time with you guys, but there's also the element of guilt at then leaving her with the kid again, the little bloke again.
Yeah, it's not an easy road. Thomas, we're going to go to news in about a minute and a half. Have you got something you want to share with Josh today before the news?
Yeah, Josh, I hear you, and it's just that's been the challenges for many of the dads groups is that, what they actually need, what we've studied, and we started up with Sam, one of the leaders down there, Dadsgroup in Hobart, which is now called Tas Dads, and also the Dads of Launceston, which is the Tas Dads group, which is awesome to see how they've transitioned the ownership of that group into a local, Tasmanian-centric kind of support group, etc. But connecting with other dads, what your experience has outlined is backed up by the research we've done over the last 10 years, and that is these groups need to be facilitated by someone who's trained, and that needs to be a job rather than just thrown together with a bunch of volunteers, because the volunteers are all rocking up with no sleep and with all the challenges, and that actually needs to have, and that's what Dadsgroup do now, work with councils, hospitals and non-for-profit organisations to host, facilitate, train local Dadsgroup leaders so that there is a support that's actually, it's weekly, it's the same spot, and you can go there and feel supported.
We have Granville from Rockingham in WA with us today. Granville, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Andrew. I've just found this discussion really interesting. What I'm trying to say, I won't keep you long because I'm a grandfather, I'm 77, but just looking back when we had a child, the first one, the pressures, your life has changed completely, just one, with a baby, and you think, well, you've no previous experience, and it's really hard, and the support we've got, my wife's parents lived in Perth, quite a long way from now, but they came as often as they could. But having that local resource there that you can, Dadsgroup, I think is invaluable, because basically through that, the friendships you can form and you can share with each other and learn from each other, I think it's tremendous, really is, and that's what you need at that time. I was pretty anxious when the first baby came along, and I hadn't really anyone to talk to, other than your wife, which obviously you do, but it's a really hard situation to go through, and if I can empathise with people today, the first child or maybe the second one, and that, what do we do? How do we cope? What do we do in this situation? Because you're learning all the time and you make mistakes, but of course, hopefully from the mistakes you make, you learn from the mistakes. So I think the Dadsgroup is a fantastic thing, that this gentleman has started up. It's really good.
Brilliant, mate. And just before we move on here, Thomas, have you got a response for Granville today? What would you like to say in response to that?
Yeah, firstly, I'd just like to say thank you. I mean, you're speaking with wisdom there of experience, and it's the people in your generation of experience that we really need to get behind this support, because you speak with authority because of what you've gone through and also what you're seeing in this next generation. So thank you very much. You're validating what we're doing. and highlighting there is a desperate need for it, and we need people like yourselves to help normalise this type of approach to new family in the village for new families. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I won't go any further. I'll just say, as a grandparent, I'm enjoying and trying to be as supportive as I can to my grandchildren and the families. That's really important. And thank you very much for what you're doing. I really, really enjoy listening to it.
Well, Granville, I want to ask you a question because you're 77 and you became a dad, I'm guessing, a couple of years ago. Tell us, you're a lot further down the journey than all of us.
Yeah.
What's your feelings now about becoming a dad? Like, how do you look back on that time now, and what sort of emotion does it create in you now as an older man?
I was 36 when I became a dad when we lived in Albany. Now I'm 77. But, since that time, you look back on it, you realise how crucial certain things were, people that you received help from, maybe the mother-in-law. But having that resource of the Dadsgroup, I think is really good. It's local, it's there, it's on tap. And through that, friendships are formed. And friendship is a really integral part of our lives, isn't it? And through friendship, we can share, we can learn, we can care.
Absolutely. But I wanted to ask you, though, Granville, how do you feel now as a 77-year-old man looking back on becoming a father, even though it was stressful and it kind of caused you a little bit of anxiety? What are your feelings now about becoming a dad? Are you just so glad you did it?
I thank God that I was very blessed to be able to find a great wife and have children through that marriage. And I just thank God for that. And what a beautiful thing, having a child, your child, through God, that's happened.
There you go. That's what I wanted. I wanted to hear that because I'm not there yet. So I'm looking forward to being 77 and looking back and thanking God. Hey, Granville, I just want to really thank you for calling in today. We appreciate your input. Always good to have WA listeners join us on the line as well. We've got another caller waiting, and I want to move to them straight away. And we have Steve from Maryborough in Victoria by the looks of it. Are you there, Steve?
How you going, mate?
Good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks.
What would you like to share today? You've got a radio in the background there, Steve. Could you maybe just turn that radio down, please?
It's a Christian channel. I'll turn it off.
Yeah, good on you, mate. And Thomas, have you got anything you want to add to the 77-year-old caller as Steve's turning his radio down? What would you like to add maybe as a final thought?
Oh, mate,
I just think that... Oh.
Yeah, keep going.
Sorry, just the final thought on speaking to Granville. I just, I think of my own dad who's turning 75, and it's this generation that really, they have the wisdom, and unfortunately our society doesn't really connect with the people of that generation really well. And I think that's a missed opportunity that I think we can all think about and reflect on. How do we re-engage with people who are in their 60s, 70s, 80s in a way that's, builds them into our village? That's such an important point. Like, a village isn't everyone the same age as you doing the same things. A village is actually that disparate group of, diverse people who make up and allow you to grow in different ways rather than just grow in the same kind of direction.
Gee, that's a good point. I'm going to go back to that point later. But Steve, are you there again? You want to ask Thomas a question?
Yeah. Look, I've been separated from my family for about 11 years because as soon as I got separated, I went and lived on the streets and turned into an alcoholic. And it tore me apart because my family was my life, and it hurt me really bad. My whole body is sad. It's not just my heart, not just my mind, it's my whole body. It's sad as hell. And I don't know what to do about that because I try to see counsellors and they come up with theories and ideations and perceptions, and they're all wrong.
Yeah.
So I'm left. All they want to do is shove pills down my throat and chemicals injections. That ain't the problem, mate. Don't solve the problem.
No, it doesn't, Steve. It doesn't. And I think Steve is raising a really important point that you made earlier, Thomas, and that is that mental health is a massive challenge when it comes to parenting in all sorts of situations. And obviously Steve's in a really challenging situation there. Thomas, do you want to share something now?
Oh, firstly, Steve, I just, my heart goes out to you, mate. Like, you're sharing a real personal part of your broken challenges, and as we do in Dadsgroup, and you're sharing that publicly, and I thank you for that. That's a really deep, share, and I think where you're at is really challenging, mate. And if there were, I don't know literally where you are at the moment, but I would like to be able to reach out and provide some kind of support to an organisation or a person who could give you some, sense of hope when you shared that your whole body is sad. That was really moving. So I feel like there is hope. We just need to be able to help you to find hope, and I hope that we can do that. I'm not sure how through this radio, but hopefully we can work something out, mate.
Well, Steve, what I'd ask you to do is actually call back Vision and just let someone help you. We have a prayer line, and also if you don't mind giving out your details, Steve, then we'll give your details to Dadsgroup, and they can reach out to you and try and find you some support down there in Victoria. But Steve, I want to thank you so much for having the courage to call us today.
Thank you, mate. And,
God bless. And I'll just ask you to go on hold there, Steve, and we'll talk to one of our producers and we'll try and get some details and put you in touch with Dadsgroup. And also feel free to call our prayer line anytime, Steve. We have a prayer line here at Vision that runs Monday to Friday, 9 till 5, and there's really kind-hearted, beautiful people here that take calls and just try and provide prayer and support to people who are facing tough times as you are right now. So thanks again, Steve, for calling in. But Thomas, it's such a sad story there, but I want to go back to your earlier point about older men, because I think this is something that our society has lost. We've lost that recognition or the recognised need of older men and women in our lives, the elder statesmen in our lives. And some of us don't have parents who are still alive. And I think you're right. We need those older men in our lives too, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that echoes some of the things that I said at the very start, which was growing up in Arnhem Land in Yirrkala. There was those elders that we sat down with around the fireplace or around, the community eating together, and those elders, those people who are in those 70s and 80s would share stories and they'd be respected, and now our society doesn't have a spot for that. So Dadsgroup is inviting grandfathers to take a leadership role with their sons in these dads groups, and all of a sudden you're hearing these stories where dads are going, oh yeah, my parents don't live in this state, but I've been able to connect with, Josh's dad, and it's been really inspiring. And same with my dad, who's gone to dads groups down in Albury Wodonga. The stories that he's had to be able to share with other young dads going through stuff just makes me so happy to hear that he can invest and sow into those lives of these other dads, not just his own, 3 sons and 1 daughter.
Absolutely. And, there's that nomadic group of people who live around the Middle East near Israel, and the name of them escape my mind right now, but they're a nomadic group. And the Israeli government years ago did studies on them because they had some of the longest life expectancy in the world. And everyone thought that it was because of their diet and because of all the fresh air and the sunshine. And they did some exhaustive study on it. And what they found was the reason everyone was living so long in that tribal group was because every night the whole group went around a campfire, young and old, together, and they told stories. And in particular, the older men, especially, and the women as well, but mainly the men, would tell stories that everyone would listen to. And in that community, that place of community, the Israelis who did the study recognized that was the cause of their longevity and their quality of life, because the older men and women felt connected to the tribe, and the younger men and women were connecting to the wisdom and just that the experiences of these older people. And it just created a really, really healthy, balanced, group of people. And it's because of the input of the elders. And I think our modern society has lost that a little bit, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure if you're referring to the Bedouin.
Yes, the Bedouin. That was the name I was looking for. It was one of those things that was going to come to me in about 10 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And it's that sense of storytelling and sharing which kind of allows people a creative space to feel heard. And, even with the work that Kate, my wife, and I going through at the moment and have for a few years, just learning how to share and learning how to deep listen to each other. So you have this sense of being heard. And I think now the greatest compliment that I can ever hear is that, that she feels heard, because I haven't in the early years of our marriage, I didn't really know how to listen deep listen. That's, you've got a whole lot of handicaps when you go into a partnership or a marriage, and you don't realise. And it's in having kids that everything, all the buttons get pressed and all things get thrown out of the basket, and you start to pick stuff up. But getting back to that storytelling and that space to be able to be heard. The beginnings of that is telling a story. The deeper part of that is when you're telling your story in a safe place. Yeah, absolutely. And obviously Dadsgroup and even church groups where there are older men in particular. I'm just speaking to all the dads now. Seek out those older men. Seek them out, have a coffee with them, connect to them and listen to them. Ask them to tell you their story of fatherhood and their journey and their struggles and how they overcame, because there's so much wisdom to glean. And that's one thing I've always done. I've always sought out the older men in the church groups I've been a part of to just seek out their wisdom and their advice, because you just got to recognise sometimes, don't you, Thomas, we don't have all the answers. We don't know everything. So we need to glean the wisdom of those who've gone before us. Oh, that's right. And, they say, you can learn from your own mistakes, but a wise person learns from others. And you can't do that unless you're connected, like you say, to those people. And I think, churches are a great opportunity to look at how you can support new fathers. Like, it's a great model that works for organisations like that who do have, those respected elders who can speak into the lives of younger fathers in a really positive way and support those families through the complex, elements of the early years. Absolutely. Hey, we've got a caller from Melanie in Victoria, and I'm really keen to hear Melanie's thoughts or comments or questions today. Melanie, welcome to 2020.
Hi, thank you. I'm just ringing. Unfortunately, my pastor's wife passed away about 14 months ago, and she had two young children, a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, and just from what the pastor said to us, just about the walk of suddenly being thrown into a role of being both mother and father to these children, and some of the guilt and the grief that he has because of that sudden role change in his life. And obviously knowing that it's God's calling, that he's the provider and carer and doing all the house chores for his family, but alongside that, not realising that what a man sort of fulfilment is in pursuing physical work or wealth in employment that way and purpose. So I'm just wondering whether there's support through the dads groups for people who actually, it's a different scenario that is unfolding in their life. Yeah, really good question there, Thomas. How would you like to answer that? Yeah, thanks. Firstly, thanks, Melanie, for sharing. And, you've really got a heart for your community and the people in your community and reaching out to support them. As an organisation, we're really geared up to support fathers in those early years or perinatal space through hospital and digital programs. However, a lot of the dads who have started Dadsgroup with us have their children have grown up, and some of them have older kids as well. So specifically, we're not a crisis support organisation. We're a prevention program. However, if it's in relation to sharing a story about fatherhood, sharing his journey with other fathers, there's definitely digital programs that would be able to zoom into and be part of a group like that, which we can help. I think it's more along the lines of understanding what the needs are, and then once we understand the needs, we can really work towards finding out how we can help. But that just sounds like a really, really challenging life journey to be taking on that role of both parents and working through the grief of that and being able to communicate to your children what's going on and why and all that kind of stuff. It's certainly not an area where I have expertise in, but we always at Dadsgroup, our expertise is bringing people together to share and talk and share their stories. It's not about an expertise to speak and give advice. So we have health pathways to specialists and organisations and psychologists and counsellors who can then do their specialist activity. We're like a generic first place for fathers to come and then seek
they might get special support if they need support beyond just catching up for a coffee with their kids.
So I think this is a good segue here for me to promote your website. It's dadsgroup.org. That's dadsgroup.org. And Melly, it sounds like if you tap into that website and reach out to Dadsgroup, that I'm sure that the team there will be able to point you in the right direction, if nothing else, and maybe even provide you with some resources and some advice for you to pass on to your pastor. But well done for thinking of your pastor and being aware of the challenges he's facing now as well, because that is a very, very tough situation he's in right now.
Mm.
Melanie, do you want to ask any other questions or make any other comments today?
I guess just from the point of view of from my family, we've got 4 children. We homeschool. My husband has never pursued, the wealth of the employment world and just the value that having a dad who is completely 100% available and physically and mentally for your children is an amazing gift. And so I just encourage men that, as much as the world says that success comes through perhaps status or how much money you've got in the bank, God looks at your heart and ploughing into your children is priceless. It can't be underestimated.
Amen. Hey, what a great message. And Melly, I want to thank you so much for calling 2020 today. And Thomas, just as we draw this to a conclusion, are there any other key points or things you want to share with our listeners today about Dadsgroup and just about the challenges of fatherhood?
Look, I think I'd just like to invite people to reflect. This is something that people don't stop and reflect on very often, especially new fathers and new mothers. Every mother has an experience with fatherhood, whether their father was present or not present in their lives. There's so much research that just demonstrates the positive impact of an engaged father, as Melanie was saying, and also conversely, the challenges that arise from fathers that aren't willing or wanting to connect with their children or their current situation. So for Dadsgroup, it's not about being a certain type of dad, but it's about being aware of who you are and wanting to get better and essentially be the best you can be. And that's, for some people, that's getting off the couch and pushing the pram. For other people, that's leading a Dadsgroup. For others, that's changing the way that the politicians see the need in Australia. But all of us can do our own little bit in this space. And as the one, demographic that's not effectively or meaningfully engaged by the health services or the social services systems, it's a huge opportunity for all of us in this nation to grow by having programs that really empower new families by supporting a cohort that just has been unintentionally overlooked. So it's a great opportunity. Think about how that can work with your workplace, with your church, if you're as part of a church, with your community group, with your sporting groups. Where does fatherhood fit in there, and how are we championing and supporting fathers to be the best they can be, knowing that that's going to in turn deliver really great long-term positive changes for our society.
I want to say this to you, Thomas. Good on you. Good on you for seeing the need and not just complaining about it or ranting about it on social media, but actually doing something about it. And you've created this incredible organisation which is creating incredible community and help and support to families all around Australia. And Thomas Docking, I'm fairly confident this is not the last time we're going to be hearing from you today. But I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I want to remind our listeners that your website is dadsgroup.org. That's dads, plural, group.org. And you're on socials as well. Thomas, are we on Facebook, Insta?
Yeah, Facebook, Insta, online. We've also got a website, Man with a Pram, which we do on Father's Day, which we can chat about another time.
Man with a Pram. I like the sound of that.
Also, I just want to say that I'm only standing on the shoulders of giants that came before me as well, Andrew. Like, there's so many initiatives and programs that people have done that Dadsgroup is really like tying them together to try and create some sustainability. Like, the problem with all the stuff that's before is that they haven't been able to find continual sustainability. And yeah, it's not just me. It's actually the team that we've got and all the volunteers over the last 10 years, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people across Australia who are just doing amazing work. And we hope to bring those people together to create a movement big enough to change policy and hopefully get to Parliament House and get some people down there making some shifts in how we do family and how we support family in the hospital and in the social services space. But everyone doing our bits, what's bringing about the changes. So thank you.
Yeah, well done again. And as I said, this isn't the last time we'll hear from you. We want to thank Thomas Docking from Dadsgroup, the CEO and the founder of Dadsgroup. Thanks again, Thomas, for joining 2020 today.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.